he knows me such that he might give you my CV. So I'm trying to avoid him starting to read my CV. Bwana asifiwe. I'm happy to be here. I think this is not the first time I've been here another time, but it's quite a long while ago. And to come to a single mothers conference. Am I calling it by the right name? Single mothers conference. But because I'm told there are men who could be online, let's talk about single parenting. Are we together? So the fathers feel included. You know, they are my brothers. So it's important that we try to include them. And this is a very, very important topic for 3 reasons. And I think it's important for you to understand. Why is single parenting such an important topic? Number 1, because parenting is God's concern. Parenting is God's concern. You read that Abraham was called because God knew he could bring up his children so that they love the Lord. I'm getting it. That you can fail to obey your calling and God says, that one don't touch. The kind of children you bring up will not follow me. So you need to understand that parenting is God's concern. And how you bring up each generation matters to God. In fact, I've just been going through the book of Joshua, and at the end it says that as long as Joshua was alive, they followed the Lord. Then another generation came that was not in the days of Joshua. They no longer followed the Lord. Somehow, the Joshua generation failed to communicate God's message to the next generation. And in this generation, we can be busy filling up churches, like it happens in Nairobi. Almost anywhere you go, they are full everywhere. But depending on how we parent, there may be they'll just start closing the churches. You get it? So that if you want to be remembered by how you affected the next generation. People keep asking me, how come you are still ministering in high school? So you hear, Gigi, we met because I was ministering in his university, which I've done. The first time I was invited to speak in a university campus was 1977. So in a few years, it'll be 50 years, I've been ministering in the university. And I joined the KSF leadership in 1970s. KSF is the one that looks after the high school Christian unions. I've been involved in preaching high school all those years. You see, even in your 70s. Yes, why? Because the God I believe in is interested in the next generation. So when you come to a parenting meeting, you are coming to a very, very important meeting. I took a long time before I've written many books, but it's only recently that my first book on parenting came out. And I'm calling the title, I'm calling A Parent as a Leader. Because leaders are people influence, isn't it? If you're a parent, you are a leader. I hope Gigi organize how they can access the books. But they're available from T Community across the road. Am I right? Yes. Yeah, so you can pick it for yourself so that you don't give my friend Gigi some more work. You just walk across and pick the book. Because I will say a few things, but of course the book says a lot of things. So you need to understand that if you call yourself a Christian, one big responsibility is affecting the next generation. In fact, I keep telling people, as a parent, the church you attend, and the apostle must not like me for saying this, but the church you attend should be determined by the quality of the Sunday school. Are we together? So don't attend a church because the preacher is fantastic. Irrelevant. How is the Sunday school? Because you You can read the Bible for yourself. Your son who is only 5 years doesn't understand. Am I right? It will depend on the type of the Sunday school teacher. You know, some Sunday schools, some churches organize Sunday school as a way of keeping the children quiet. You know, so you go so that we can have a proper service. You know, our Sunday school is not a worship, it's just a way of babysitting. Are we together? And so even the teachers in Sunday school know that the senior pastor gave us a job of babysitting. Now, is that your church? Leave it earlier rather than later. Because God is concerned about the next generation. In fact, the most important pastor in a church should be the one who teaches Sunday school. Unfortunately, most churches, if you say I'm a Sunday school pastor, people look down on you. Now, they don't understand. That's not the way God looks at it. You know, somebody went to preach, and when he came back after the mission, he was asked, how was the mission? Oh, the Lord blessed us. How? 2.5 people got saved. He said, what? 2.5 people? What do you mean, 2.5 people? He said, yes, 2.5 people got saved. The Lord was good in our mission. So he was asked, so you mean 2 children, you mean 2 adults and a child? No! You don't understand. When an old person gets saved, like me in my 70s, I don't give a half. I only give a third of my life to Christ. If you get saved at the age of 70, you don't give half. So all adults who get saved are a half. So how many people got saved? 2 children and none. Because the child gave the whole of his life to Christ, the adults gave half. I'm getting the point? Yes. And that's what you need to understand as you talk about parenting. That the most important responsibility you have is not pastoring, it is not what you do at work. By the way, my first job in 1977, I used to work here in Chubi House, 18th floor. So this is my neighborhood in 1970s. The most important thing is not what I was doing in ICBC giving rooms. It is how do I bring up my children. It's a very, very important thing. Remember, I'm still answering the question. Why is this conference so important? Because as long as you are talking about parenting, you are talking about something that is critical in God's eye. The second reason why it is important is because single parents are now the majority, unfortunately, of our nation. In other words, out of every 10 children, 6, I read it in the Sunday Nation one some time back, every 10 children, 6 come from single parents. That is totally unfortunate, but happens to be factual. So, if you keep talking to people with the 2 parents, you are not talking to a half. You are talking to less than half. When you talk to single parents, unfortunately, I keep repeating the word unfortunately, you are talking to people who are influencing the next generation. Are we together? Whether we like it or not. Whether we become like ostriches, I've not seen it happen, but I'm told ostriches, when a fire comes, it normally hides its head in the sun, believing the fire cannot, if my head cannot be burnt, I will not be burnt. Sure, the fire can start from the back. But there are some people, we can start assuming they are not single parents. Keep assuming. But they are just becoming an ostrich. So the second reason why this conference is important is because single parents, and I want to spend a bit of time dealing with that, just mentioning. You know, there are 3 institutions. There are 3 institutions that God created and are still there. The first institution is a state. God hates anarchy. So there is no country supposed to be on its own without any government. God wants there to be a government, the state. It is, according to Romans chapter 13, it's God who has instituted the state, and that the governor is God's servant. Have you read that one? Number 2, God institutes the church. The idea of Christianity my own way. Where do you go to church? I'm freelance. Freelance is not Christianity. It's demonic. Am I communicating? You need to understand, you need to belong to a local church somewhere. It's God who instituted a church. Mine is just up the road. Valley Road. It's called Valley Road. Of course, you could be River Road, but it doesn't quite matter where. You must belong to a local church. And it's important to understand it was instituted by God. And if the society will run properly, it must have the government, state, it must have the church. Thirdly, the institution that was set up by God is called the family. The family is a governance institution. And any nation that has a problem in the family will soon have a problem in the church, and will soon have a problem in the state. I'm actually told in Rome, original Rome, it started with the family. You know, they became immoral. The people did not speak with their wives, things like that. And once there was moral decay in the family, soon, of course, they started destroying the church. And finally, the mighty Roman Empire collapsed. Like fish, it starts with the head, rotting. Are we together? So you need to understand, I'm still answering the question, why this thing is that important. Because once the family doesn't work, soon the church will not work, and soon the country will not work. It's in any church's selfish interest to be interested in how parenting is done. And that will be very, very important. Just to hear God speaking about it. Look at Psalm 68 verse 6. Psalm 68 verse 6. And I don't know whether they were going to project. Or are they? Okay. They are doing the one on single motherhood. Family is God's idea for social peace and development, is what I'm saying. Psalm 68 verse 6 is saying, God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with the singing, but the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. In other words, the loneliness that is causing a lot of suicides, you have heard about them. It's all because the family is not doing its job. The scriptures are saying, the people God finds lonely, He sets them up in families. So that if you want to know whether you have a good family, find out, are there people who are lonely in your family? And it will be very important to understand, if you really have a good family, your children must not feel lonely. And I don't think I have enough time to really go into details about some of these things. You can, like I said, you can find it in my book. But you need to understand that in parenting, we parent according to Luke chapter 2 verse 52. How Jesus was parented. And in Luke chapter 2 verse 52, Jesus was parented so that he grew in stature, that's physical development. He grew in wisdom, that's intellectual development. He grew in favor with the man, that's social development. And he grew in favor with the God, spiritual development. So good parenting is done exactly the Luke 2:52 style. Where you see the way I'm bringing up my child, they are growing by stature. What does growing stature means? It means you look after their physical health. That's why if you are a good parent, you have the NHIF card. So that if they get sick, the child gets sick, and you don't have money, you don't say, you will be better. You take them to hospital in prayer, of course. You know, doctors don't heal. They treat, but God heals. But without the card, when you sit here and you're a parent and you've refused to get an ATM card, you are a bad parent. Because you're not looking at the physical welfare of your child. Jesus grew in stature. The mother and the foster father ensured they were physically looking after him. So, even if you don't care about your own health, you better care about your child's health, isn't it? And you know, we normally say children are like thermometer. You know, thermometer goes up and down depending on the temperature. Similarly, you don't need a thermometer. Just look at your child. A cold comes, they have a cold. Hot comes, I'm married to, I'm a grandfather, so I'm not seeing it at close quarters. Now I watch it from my grandchildren. But that's what happens. So if you really are good parenting, you need a medical system. Are we together? Yeah. And see the NHI card, I was told it's 500 shillings or something. Surely, and I hear it will drop to less than that if you really have no money. Surely you can afford the 300 shillings per month to ensure that your child, you don't have to think thrice before you take your child to the hospital or clinic. Because without money, you think thrice before you take the child to the hospital. Am I right? So we are talking about parenting. And parenting, according to Luke chapter 2 verse 52, means looking after the physical welfare of your child. And an NHIF medical card. Of course, you can have the expensive one if you are rich. I was always assuming you are poor. That's why you just have an NHIF card, and most of the immediate problems will be taken care of. Am I right? So that's why it is important. The other thing, if you are really a good parent, is that you will feed your child healthy foods. And you don't have to be rich to give healthy food. What is healthy food? That your meal has some starch. The last time I did biology was when I did my Form 4 in 1971. So for the last 50-something years, I've not been to the class. But I think they used to tell me, and I think they have not changed. You needed starch, protein, and what was the third one? Vitamin, carbohydrates. Starch is carbohydrates. Am I right? So it's carbohydrates, protein, vitamins. Is that difficult to get? No. If you have sukuma wiki, see there is your protein. Just go to the Koba and buy some things. So you have protein. And the ugali is available. Now you have a balanced diet at a very cheap price. Am I right? Of course, if you get rich, buy the chicken, buy whatever, but I am told that if you eat chicken and I eat beans, the guy with the bean has better protein than the one with chicken. It's only you has cost more. But when the beans have been swallowed by the stomach, all the cells do it to extract protein, and the rest comes out you know where. But whether you eat chicken or eat beans, you eat a balanced diet. So we are saying good parenting is not expensive, but requires the brain. Jesus grew in stature. So they are not properly. Thirdly, I'm told, if you really are doing good parenting, you don't put all your children to be doing classwork throughout the day. Children must physically play. Are we together? So you give your child time for exercise and rest, where they can go outside and do something. Don't allow them to be fixed on a gadget. You give them a smartphone as a way of bringing them up. So they are looking at the smartphone the whole day. Their bones don't grow. That's bad parenting. Are we together? And it's important to ask yourself, is that something you are doing or not? So Jesus grew in stature. Number 2, he grew in wisdom. That is intellectual development. And that's why a good parent will ensure the child goes to a school. Doesn't have to be an expensive school. It's very interesting how, when the results come out, when they used to compare schools, the results come out, and the best school is a very poor school. Have you seen Olympic doing very well? Am I right? Against, and there they have not money to pay, but they are beating schools where you are paying hundreds of thousands per term. Am I right? So you need it as parents' responsibility to take their children to school. It's a parent's responsibility to take their children to school. And so you need to ask yourself, am I doing well in that area as a parent? The baby grew in wisdom. Intellectual development. But when I talk about that, education not that in school. It is you talking to a child, letting the child know various things. You are also an educator. Don't leave everything to the teachers. Thirdly, the baby grew in favor with the man. Social development. It is the responsibility of a parent to teach a child what is called interpersonal skills. How do you relate with other people? How do you talk to adults? How do you talk to children? You teach them respect. You also teach them about setting boundaries. In other words, there are things you can say to your age mate, but you can't say to another person. All that you have no social skills if you don't know how to talk appropriately, depending on where you are. Am I clear? You can't talk about good parenting when you haven't taught to a child how to set boundaries and to know you don't do that. Yeah. They don't come to your bedroom and their children who are more than 3 years old, and you keep allowing them to come into the bedroom when you are dressing. You need to tell them there is something called nakedness. Are we together? Those are called social skills. The baby grew in favor with. Now, if he doesn't know that, the auntie will come, and when the auntie is dressing, you come bumping inside. This is what's wrong with this child. Can they do their private moments? The child is old enough to understand, but the parenting has been funny or wrong. Are we together? So those are Jesus grew in favor with man, means he was taught social skills. Have you taught your daughter to set boundaries? Now not for others, for herself. That an animal cannot touch her inappropriately. That's a big word. What does inappropriate mean? Your daughter must know that when her animal touches her certain places, she must say, Mom told me never to allow any man to touch me like that. That's not the responsibility of another else. It's your responsibility. Those are Jesus grew in favor with man. He was taught boundaries. You can't allow people. Many children are being raped by relatives because the parents did not teach boundaries. Oh, my brothers are terrible, but you are the one more terrible. Why did you teach your child to stop at another stage? Let the uncle will not just bam. You start by touching, and the child thinks you don't say no to an adult. You say no to an adult if they touch you inappropriately. These are all parenting things. So you came for a parenting conference. Maybe you didn't expect this, but you need to know those are the details. Because we learned them from Jesus. He grew in favor with man. So they must know. That's why you also ask yourself, a lot of us don't know a few languages. Why? Because we are bad parents. Like you can speak English, you can speak Swahili, you can speak Luya, but your child cannot speak English and Swahili. They can't speak Luya. Why? Because you are a bad parent. That's all. Because the good parents, your parents were better. They taught you Luya. Now you are our parent. Am I communicating? Because you see, your world is as wide as your languages. I used to work for Shell. I was covering about 10 countries. This region from Madagascar, Mauritius, to Djibouti, Sudan, Ethiopia. About 10 countries. And 4 of those countries were French speaking. When I'm in the other countries, I witness. I am in Tanarico, I'm staying over the weekend, I'm in the Hilton, in Tanarico, but I just smile. You don't know that they speak French, I speak English, you can't communicate, and I'm limited. Why? Because I never studied French. Am I communicating? Yes. If only I knew French, I could have won somebody to Christ. Am I right? Now just now. Everybody smile. I don't even know how to order food. Now you point like this, like am I communicating? So your child should know as many languages as possible. If his father's language is Luya and the mother's language is Kikuyu, that makes it far better. You know English, Swahili, Kikuyu, and Luya. But now the parents, many of your parents, educate. Think of how little can your child know, not how much. They are trying as much as possible to reduce the subjects. They know. It is very important that for social skills, language is important. To go to the grandmother and be talking in science like a book, now it's not quite right. It's not good parenting. Are we together? They should, if you can speak a language, your children should also. I know something odd. Children can speak a language inside the house, and when they go to play, they play in another language. Am I right? At the end of 3 or 4 years, they learn. Older people find it difficult to learn languages. Young ones are not difficult. Am I right? When our children were going to school, we insisted in them learning Kikuyu. So, like our firstborn, they don't do any English until the day they went to nursery at the age of 4. Now the question is, how are they going to a nursery school that will be learning English and they cannot speak Kikuyu? Do you know, if they went on a Monday, by Friday they were speaking English. And I'm not giving a story, it's a reality. I don't know how children learn. You know, even what I had tried to teach them, 1, 2, 3, when I reach them, you know, A, B, C, D, when I reach them, I start the next one, they forget the first ones. Within 1 week, they could say A, B, C to Z. And they now know English, isn't it? Now we had difficulty with the younger ones, because they were now taught English too early. But the first one, we ensured they could only speak Kikuyu. So that, since they will pay somebody to speak English, how can I pay him for doing nothing? So they don't learn English in advance. I teach them the language they will not learn in school. Jesus grew in favor with man. He knew the language. Are we together? That's what we're talking about parenting. Finally, Jesus grew in favor with God. Spiritual development. You cannot call yourself a good parent when you cannot create at a very early age the image of who God is in the child. By the age of 2, by the time they are knowing who they are, they should not be knowing there is God. Are we together? So they grew with the picture of God continuously. And I'm relearning it because I'm talking to my grandchildren, and I'm realizing at a very early age, they can start appreciating God. Why did God do this? I pray to God, God did not answer. Now they are very young, you don't even know how to explain. But you are telling them. Are we together? Do not assume. God, Deuteronomy chapter 6. It is not the work of the primary responsibility of Sunday school teachers to teach your child about God. It's your own responsibility as a parent. Are we together? And that's why we are saying the institution most important is parenting, family. If it is done right, nobody will be lonely. Because here, Psalm 68, verse 6 is saying, God sets the lonely in families. In other words, his solution to loneliness is good families. Are we together? And that's a very, very important thing to understand. So you need to understand that your children need to feel at home. So we call the home the unconditional love center. The unconditional love center. Almost anywhere else you go, they'll be loved for what they do. At home, they are loved because they are. The trouble is, some of the mothers have become teachers. Your child has a teacher in school and he comes home to find another teacher. You need to understand you are not a teacher, you are a mother. Do not relate your child with the marks. The teachers are right to be annoyed. You became number one from the back. What's wrong with you? And you come home, you are last but married. They need to understand that the fact that they are last makes the blood no less. So you have two children, one is number one from the front, and the other one is number one from the back. Both need to be loved equally. Amen. Because the parenting requires unconditional love. Unfortunately, many of you are already reflecting your own life. And you know your parents do not do that. They love people depending on their performance. Am I right? That's not Christian parenting. Christian parenting. You know God loves us. Just go to Romans chapter 5 verse 8. He says, He loved us while we were yet. He did not wait for improvement. Because He's our Father. Are we together? Similarly, if you are a parent like God, you love your children before they ever improve. The only thing that will be stopped is the laziness. Because laziness is sin. So you can discipline your child for being lazy, but not for becoming an everlasting class. Because laziness, I keep telling people when people are in hell, I've been locked up in a police cell, so I know people ask each other. They ask each other, why are you here? You, why are you here? They ask each other. So when people are in hell, I assume they also ask each other, why are you here? So the first one, why are you here? Me, I was very immoral. And the other one, and why are you here? Me, I was just lazy. Now, it will not require that you are immoral. Simply being lazy is a sin. Are we together? Yeah. What did you do wrong? I was lazy. The Bible says, do not work, do not eat unless you work. Me, I kept eating. Now, that's why I'm here. Same temperature. It does not matter this one was immoral, this one was lazy, they will be the same temperature. Are we together? So it's important that you teach your child laziness is evil. Not just wrong, but evil. They should always do their best. And what you should be interested in your child is if they do their best. If they did their best and they became number one from the back, congratulate them. Are we together? You can be number last time because you had 40 marks. You are now number last this time, but you got 45. So you should buy them a prize. Because they have improved, isn't it? But unfortunately, the others improved even more. But you are not comparing your child with another. They are unique. Are we together? So you need a method that measures improvement rather than that measures what they are clever. Anyway, let me not go on that. We have much more material to cover. But I hope I'm communicating. Is this important to you? Yeah, because it will be important. So he put the lonely in families. Means your home must be an unconditional love center. Then there will be nobody who is lonely. Out there they will have with your child because his nose is too long. What's the kind of nose? They have something Gigi that's called machungu. And what is that? Have you heard of machungu? Machunguano or muchonguano? It was not there in our time. We just had it the other day. I was wondering, why are people talking so rudely? I was told it's big talk in school. Machonguano, whatever Gigi called me, is actually now in school. Where you say, your father is so ugly, he can win a competition. Now they are making fun. And the whole class is supposed to laugh. You have not heard of it? I've had it in children's program. And I said, what is this they are teaching children? And when you are taught like that, you can become the receiver of the jokes. Your child comes home feeling terrible. They should know that there's somebody who does not mind my nose. My mother. Are we together? Yes. They need to know somewhere where they are accepted with their size of nose. They are not trying to cut it. It's acceptable. Whatever it is that your child. So he sets the lonely in families. Ephesians chapter 3 verse 15 says, I knew before the Father, from whom his whole family in heaven and on earth derived its name. What does that mean? Families derive their name from God. That's why we call him God the Father. Because he is the head of a family. Okay, all the families on earth. So when you become your family, you are drawing from God. He's the one who is the origin of families. You know, just to back my earlier statement, the Southern Nation, 18th August 2013, wrote, for every 10 Kenyan mothers, 6 are single mothers. Only 4 are in marriages. So don't quote me on it. And that was 2013. Is it likely to be better or worse now? Better or worse? Worse. We need to talk about the subject, but not to you. But why is that happening? Because the church needs to be concerned. Very seriously concerned. Why is it happening? Of course, in a lot of cases, not all of them, but in a lot of cases, it's because we have forgotten our boy child. We just empowered women and forgot. The other day I was invited by a church. They gave me a topic I've not had before. How to handle the empowered woman. It was a men's meeting. No woman was allowed. For Nganga to tell them how to handle the empowered woman. And it can be an issue. I don't have a PhD, but my wife has a PhD. So how do I handle her? Isn't she an empowered woman? Yes, please. I'm not even looking for a PhD. Because marriage has nothing to do with degrees, am I right? But the men are frightened. My wife has a PhD, I don't. And because of that, I throw her away with her PhD. So she ends up in a single mother. But the real problem was the boy child, badly brought up. Somebody is telling you to say more. So the church needs to address it during a Sunday service. That's a special meeting. We must tell men, because the ones that are about to divorce are attending Sunday service, isn't it? So before they do it, someone must tell them it's childish to divorce your wife because she got a PhD. Or to divorce her because she is now earning double your salary. Because something means there is something seriously wrong with the upbringing of the boy child. But of course, there's another problem. And that one is a societal problem. The 30% gender rule has come, and because it's found women who somewhere far, now it has given women advantages men don't have. In other words, if you get degrees at the same time, the girl is likely to get promotion before you. And it's not because she is better than you. She simply is getting what is called affirmative action. So society, in trying to correct a previous error, is making the boy child even more threatened. Am I communicating? Can you see the trouble marriages are getting? And that's not from the boy, it's from society. Before I retired from Shell, we had a requirement from the London office to ensure that the top management, a certain percentage, were women. There wasn't even one. So to find a way of looking for them and trying to grow them. So by the deadline, a woman is in top management. At that point, even if a boy is doing well, you forget it. You will lose your bonus by not meeting the target. So you must bring up a woman. So that women are not aware about it. They have started calling their husbands lazy, useless. What are you bringing in this house? And women get away with that. Now, basically, by the time you ask a man what kind of a man he is, those who are who you know what I'm just saying. Is there any hope for your marriage? So that the third problem are unwise women. That's what happened with single parenting. and wise women. How do you think? Are they boy child or do they trap? Then you ask him, what kind of man he is? Is he likely to answer that? Haven't you destroyed your own? And that's what the Bible says. An unwise woman destroyed her house with her own hands. And that's something the church needs to deal with. Because an unwise woman has hope. She can become wise, isn't it? But she needs help. Are we together? We need to tell women not to be unwise and destroy their own marriages. I'll tell you the next thing. Those are only three things. I want to tell you why we have come to these statistics. It's because somehow, and you might misunderstand me, but I still feel this is the right thing to say. We have accepted that single parenting is normal. The scriptures don't back it, but we have had to adjust the scriptures to accept that single parenting is normal. I still remember being interviewed in KBC in service. And I don't know what the interviewer expected me to say. Because I had just been in the Kikuyu Shoro service. And then I was, they when you finish, why don't you come to my studio? I said, I did not. They said, no, come. So I went. Sorry, it was the English. I had gone to the English, the KBC, the service. Then I was now brought to the Kikuyu one. The Kikuyu one, my friend, the lady was so hostile. And this one invited me. Because I kept talking about the biblical requirement is a child be brought up by a man and a woman. I said, no. Whatever a man can do, even which is total nonsense. But if the nonsense is so repeated, people believe it. Have you ever heard of a woman who impregnated another one? Is that difficult? It's not difficult. It's impossible. If it was difficult, we can work on it. So can you imagine such nonsense you think said by professors? Whatever a man can do, he can't. God is the one in Genesis chapter 5, he says he created them, male and female. The differentiation is not, we were not consulted. So you need to understand in God's economy, every child must be brought up by a man and a woman. So when that doesn't happen, it is hardly a problem. But you must accept it as a problem. So do not start thinking that it's okay, I'm a single mother, it's okay. It's not okay. Are we together? Yes. It is not okay. It's not okay. That was not God's intention. Yes. You know, as I continued with this Shoro interviewer, it was being hostile, more and more hostile. You know, they ask you, and remember it's live, people are listening, and they can hear there's a fight here going on in the studio. I say this, she says this. You know, finally the interview ended. Then she told me, you know, I'm sorry, but you are talking to me. I'm a single mother. I've always told my son he doesn't require anybody. Now you are contradicting me. How could I help you? But he told me something that made me at least not be as anxious. He told me, but I'm now converted. I now agree. My son needs men in their life, in his life. And I'm going to try to organize it. So it's very important to understand, if you don't accept there is something not quite right. And by the way, those of you listening online, and you are a man, be aware, even a single father, that's not ideal. Every child must have a mother. Are we together? And it's a very important thing to understand that that's God's intention. But does not mean that your child cannot grow normal if there is no father. But if you only grow normal, if you accept there is a problem, and then seek how to deal with it. Yes. Are we together? Now that you know it's not normal, you now seek the ways of dealing with it.